The hospital room smelled like fresh linen and a little bit of fear. Jasmine lay there, her hair stuck to her forehead with sweat, holding her newborn twins tightly against her chest. One tiny baby boy, dark-skinned like her, was sleeping peacefully. The other, a girl, had pale white skin, soft blondish hair and ice-blue eyes. Jasmine could barely breathe looking at them both. She loved them instantly, but deep inside a panic was clawing its way up her chest. Marcus, her husband, stood by the door, frozen. His hands hung uselessly at his sides, his mouth slightly open. He wasn't saying a word. Not congratulations, not even a smile. Just staring hard, first at the babies, then at Jasmine, like he was trying to do the math in his head, and it wasn't adding up. The nurse, cheerful and oblivious, came bustling in, adjusting the blankets around the babies, and humming under her breath. "Beautiful twins," she said brightly. "Boy and girl, how lucky. Not many mothers get both at once." Jasmine tried to smile, tried to act normal, but Marcus's silence was heavier than the walls around them. It was suffocating her. Later, when they were alone, Marcus finally spoke. His voice was flat, almost too calm. "Jazz, we need to talk," she nodded, swallowing hard. She had been dreading this moment from the second the nurse placed the second baby, the white one, into her arms. "I need to know," he said, his eyes burning into hers, "who the hell the father of that little girl is." Tears flooded Jasmine's eyes immediately. She clutched the babies tighter to her chest, instinctively protective. "Marcus, they're ours," she whispered. "Both of them." He let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Ours? Jazz! Look at her." His finger pointed like an accusation. "She's white, blonde hair, blue eyes. You telling me our genes made that?" Jasmine shook her head frantically. "I don't know, Marcus. I swear to God I don't know. Maybe some kind of rare genetic thing? Mutations happen, right?" He wasn't buying it. She could see it all over his face. Marcus was the kind of man who needed solid facts. No maybes, no miracles. "You're telling me you never slept with anyone else?" he said slowly, dangerously calm. "No," Jasmine cried. "I swear. Marcus, only you, only ever you." But even as the words left her mouth, guilt twisted her stomach. It wasn't a lie exactly, not really. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Because there was one night she had buried deep inside her memory. One night, 6 months, before her wedding, when she had gotten so drunk she could barely remember what happened. A night she had never told Marcus about, because she had convinced herself it didn't matter. It was over. It was buried. Until now. Marcus ran a hand over his face, pacing the room like a caged animal. "You want me to raise someone else's kid?" "Jazz," he snapped, "you think I'm that stupid?" "They're your kids," Jasmine sobbed. "They feel like your kids. Please, Marcus, please don't do this." He looked at her for a long, long moment. Then he said the words that made her heart stop. "I'm getting a DNA test." Jasmine's arms tightened around the babies automatically, as if she could shield them from the wreckage that was coming. Because deep down, she knew. She knew that the truth Marcus was about to uncover wouldn't just break his heart. It would shatter everything, and there would be no going back. The hospital room smelled like fresh linen and something sharper, a sterile, cold scent that somehow matched the knot tightening in Jasmine's stomach. She lay there on the bed, exhausted but wired, cradling her newborn twins close to her chest. One of them, a little boy, had her rich brown skin, thick black curls already peeking out from under the hospital cap. But the other, Jasmine couldn't stop looking at her. The little girl was as pale as snow, blonde wisps of hair, tiny, delicate hands that looked almost translucent. And when the baby girl opened her eyes, they were a piercing shade of blue, the kind Jasmine had only ever seen in magazines. She pressed her lips to their foreheads, one after the other, trying to smother the rising panic with love. Twins. Blessing, the doctor had said, but Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a blessing, it was a curse waiting to explode. Marcus stood near the doorway, stiff and silent. Jasmine met his eyes, dark, wide, confused, and felt her heart thud painfully against her ribs. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't crying with joy. He wasn't rushing to hold them. He was frozen, watching. The nurse came bustling back in, her scrubs rustling as she moved around the bed, humming under her breath like this was just any other happy, normal day. "Beautiful babies," she said brightly, not noticing the thick, heavy air between husband and wife. "You're so lucky, Mama. One boy, one girl. How perfect is that?" Jasmine forced a weak smile, nodding like she agreed. But inside, her mind was screaming. Lucky. Perfect. Nothing about this felt perfect when the nurse finally left, the door clicking softly behind her. The room seemed to grow colder. The silence between them stretched and pulled. An invisible rope wrapped tight around Jasmine's throat. Marcus moved closer. His boots thudded softly against the hospital floor. He stopped at the edge of her bed, staring down at the twins, his face a mask of disbelief. "Jazz," he said, voice low and raw. "What the hell is this?" Jasmine opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out at first. She licked her dry lips and tried again. "They're our babies, Marcus," she whispered, almost pleading. He let out a short, humorless laugh like a man on the verge of breaking. "Our babies," he repeated, voice rising. "You really expect me to believe that?" She flinched. Tears burned the back of her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Genetics are weird, Marcus," she said quickly, grasping for something, anything. "It happens sometimes. There's things in the DNA, mutations or recessive genes." "Recessive genes." Marcus cut her off sharply. He pointed at the tiny girl like she was a smoking gun. "Jazz, she's white, not light-skinned. Not mixed. She's a little white girl with blue eyes. You telling me two black parents made that?" Jasmine shook her head, feeling helpless. "I don't know, Marcus. I don't know how it happened. But I swear to you, I never—" He stared at her, so hard it felt like he was trying to see through her skin, into her bones, into her soul. "Hayat never what?" he said coldly. "You never slept with anyone else?" "No," Jasmine said instantly. "Never while we were together. Never." A beat passed, a horrible, heavy beat, and there it was. The memory she had spent months burying, clawing, to forget, shoving itself back into her brain like a knife. That one night, 6 months before the wedding. A bachelorette party that got way too wild. Shots, laughter, blurred faces. She had woken up in a strange bed wearing someone else's t-shirt, her stomach churning with guilt and confusion. She had told herself it didn't count, that it had meant nothing, that it was forgotten, until now. Marcus dragged a hand over his face, exhaling hard through his nose. He started pacing, his boots echoing sharply in the small room. "You know what this looks like, Jazz? It looks like you cheated. It looks like you lied, and now you want me to raise someone else's mistake." "It's not like that," Jasmine said desperately. "Please, Marcus, please, they're ours." But she could see it, see the wall going up inside him, brick by brick, cold, unbreakable. "I'm getting a DNA test," he said, voice like ice. Jasmine's heart cracked. "Marcus, don't," he snapped. "Don't even try. Not until I know." He turned and walked out the door, the slam of it making her jump. Jasmine looked down at the babies. In her arms. The boy yawned, tiny fists stretching, his face full of innocent peace. The girl blinked up at her with those impossible blue eyes. A sob tore itself from Jasmine's chest before she could stop it, because deep down, she knew. Once Marcus knew the truth, there would be no putting this family back together again. Marcus didn't come back that night. Jasmine sat there in the cold, sterile hospital room, the twins sleeping soundly in the plastic bassinets next to her bed. Every few minutes she'd glance at the door, hoping to hear the familiar heavy steps of her husband, but it stayed quiet. Just the distant hum of hospital machines and the occasional soft cries from another newborn down the hall. She wanted to call him, to beg him to come back, to explain. But what was there to explain when she didn't have answers herself? By morning, her heart felt like a cracked mirror, barely holding together. A nurse came in to check her vitals, cheerful as ever, talking about discharge papers and going home. Jasmine just nodded along, forcing herself to smile, pretending that she had a home to return to, pretending that everything wasn't falling apart right in front of her. Around noon, Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. Her hands trembled as she snatched it up, praying it was Marcus. It was a text. "Marcus, I'll pick you and the kids up at 3. We're doing the test first thing." "No, I love you." "No, how are you?" Just cold, efficient words. Jasmine bit her lips so hard, it almost bled. She wanted to scream, to cry, but she didn't. She just closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "You can fix this. You can fix this, you have to." When 3 p.m. rolled around, Marcus showed up. He didn't even glance at her belly, still sore from the C-section, didn't ask if she was okay. He just stood there, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight. "Let's go," he said flatly. The ride to the clinic was pure torture. The twins were strapped into the back seat, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm brewing around them. Jasmine kept glancing at Marcus out of the corner of her eye. His knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. She opened her mouth several times to say something, anything, but every time the words dried up in her throat. What was she supposed to say? "Trust me," when she wasn't even sure she could trust herself. The DNA testing clinic was a small building tucked between a payday loan office and a laundromat. The paint on the walls was peeling, and the waiting room smelled faintly of bleach and despair. Jasmine held the twins in her arms while Marcus filled out the paperwork, his handwriting jagged and angry. The nurse called them back after a few minutes. She was a tired-looking woman with dark circles under her eyes and a polite but distant smile. "We'll just do a simple cheek swab," she said briskly. "Mother, father, and both infants. Results will be available in about a week." Marcus nodded, sharply. Jasmine tried to smile at the nurse, but her face felt frozen. The swabbing was quick, a cotton swab against the inside of each tiny mouth, a separate one for Marcus and Jasmine. Jasmine's heart pounded so loudly in her ears she thought she might pass out. As they left, Marcus didn't say a word, not one. They drove back to their house in silence, their beautiful little house, the one Marcus had worked 2 jobs to pay off, the one they had painted together, laughing and throwing colors at each other like teenagers. The house that was supposed to be the start of their forever. Jasmine stood awkwardly by the door, while Marcus carried the baby carriers inside. He set them down gently. She noticed that, like he was still trying to protect them even if he couldn't look at her. "I'm staying at my brother's until the results come in," he said, without looking at her. Her stomach dropped. "Marcus, please," she whispered. He shook his head. "Don't. I can't even look at you right now, Jazz. I need to know the truth first." And with that, he turned and walked out the door, the sound of it slamming shut behind him like the final nail in the coffin. Jasmine collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. The twins began to fuss, sensing the tension, and she forced herself to get up, to move, to mother them. Days passed like a slow, agonizing drip. She fed them, changed them, rocked them to sleep, all while the weight of Marcus's absence crushed her chest a little more every hour. Her mother called once, cheerful and oblivious, asking when she could come see her new grandbabies. Jasmine lied and said she needed a few more days to recover. How could she explain this? How could she admit that the perfect life she had built was splintering into pieces? On the 4th day, around midnight, Jasmine sat in the nursery, rocking the twins slowly in the dim light. Tears slipped silently down her face. She thought about that night again, the night she had buried and tried to forget. She thought about the man. His face was blurry like a dream. She remembered he was white, tall, smiling, gentle. She had woken up in his bed, heart pounding with shame, and ran out before he even opened his eyes. What if he was the father of her daughter? The thought made her stomach churn. How could she explain that to Marcus? How could she explain it to her children one day? The worst part, the part she couldn't even admit out loud, was that a tiny, traitorous part of her had hoped the baby girl had been just a genetic fluke, a miracle, but she knew better now. She had known from the moment she laid eyes on her daughter's icy blue eyes that some truths couldn't stay buried forever. And soon, Marcus was going to dig it all up. And when he did, Jasmine wasn't sure. What would be left of her life at all? The days dragged by like years. Every noise made Jasmine jump. Every ring of the phone made her heart leap into her throat. Sleep was a memory. Even when she closed her eyes, her mind kept spinning, replaying every moment she had ever shared with Marcus, every kiss, every promise, every fight, every tear. Was this how it all ended? A mistake from a night she couldn't even fully remember? By the time the clinic called, Jasmine was barely holding herself together. She sat on the couch with her phone in her hand, staring at the number flashing on the screen, paralyzed. She didn't answer it, couldn't. She just let it ring until it stopped, her hands trembling so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Not even an hour later, there was a knock at the door, hard, angry, final. She knew before she even opened it that it was Marcus. When she pulled the door open, he stood there holding a crumpled manila envelope in one hand. His eyes were bloodshot. His jaw was clenched so tightly that a vein stood out on the side of his neck. He didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed past her into the house, breathing heavily like he had just run a marathon. Jasmine closed the door quietly, her heart sinking to the floor. "You want to tell me something before I open this?" Marcus said, waving the envelope in the air. Jasmine opened her mouth, but nothing came out. What could she say? That she hoped against all odds that the test would come back clean? That she prayed the universe would give her a miracle? Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, that's what I thought." He ripped the envelope open right there, right in front of her, pulling out the sheets inside. Silence. His eyes scanned the words quickly, hungrily, like he already knew what he was going to find and just needed the confirmation. When he finally looked up, his face wasn't angry anymore. It was worse. It was empty. "The boy's mine," he said, voice hollow. "The girl isn't." Jasmine felt the world tilt under her feet. A low, broken sob tore from her throat, but Marcus didn't move. He didn't try to comfort her. He just stood there, staring at her like he didn't even recognize the woman in front of him. "You cheated on me," he said quietly. "You let me marry you, have a family with you, build a life with you, and you lied the whole damn time." "I didn't mean to," Jasmine choked out, tears streaming down her face. "It was one night, Marcus, one stupid, horrible night. I didn't even know. I swear to you, I didn't know." Marcus let out a harsh breath, rubbing a hand over his face. "Who was it?" "I don't know," she sobbed. "It was at my bachelorette party. I was drunk. I don't even remember his name." Marcus laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "Perfect. That's just perfect." He paced the room, running his hands through his hair like he was trying to rip it out by the roots. Jasmine watched him helplessly, her heart breaking into 1,000 tiny, sharp pieces. "What are you going to do?" she asked finally, her voice small and shaking. He stopped pacing, turned to her. His eyes were hard. "I'm filing for divorce." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. "No, Marcus, please," she whispered, reaching out to him. "Please don't do this. Think about our son. Think about everything we've built." Marcus shook his head, backing away from her touch like it burned him. "You thought about all that when you spread your legs for some random stranger." The slap of his words was harder than any physical blow. "I made a mistake," Jasmine sobbed. "A mistake I can't undo. But please, Marcus, don't punish the babies. They need you, I need you." He stared at her for a long, long moment. Then his face softened, just for a second, and it nearly broke her. "I'll be there for my son," he said finally. "Always. But you? I don't even know who you are anymore." He turned and walked out the door again, and this time Jasmine knew he wasn't coming back. She sank to the floor, sobbing so hard she thought her heart might actually shatter. In the nursery, the twins stirred in their cribs, sensing the storm. Even in their sleep, Jasmine crawled to them, pulling herself up and cradling both babies in her arms. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into their soft hair. "I'm so sorry for everything." But it was too late. The truth was out now, and the life she had fought so hard to build was crumbling all around her, one crack at a time, and somewhere, out there in the city, was a stranger who didn't even know he had a daughter. Yet Jasmine barely left the house after Marcus left. Days blurred into nights. She moved through the motions like a ghost, feeding the babies, changing diapers, rocking them back to sleep. her mind always somewhere far away. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every knock at the door made her heart hammer against her ribs. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop. She could feel it coming. Marcus wasn't the kind of man to just walk away quietly, especially not with a betrayal like this hanging in the air. It came on a Wednesday. Jasmine had just gotten the twins down for a nap when she heard a sharp knock at the door. She froze, blood turning cold. She tiptoed to the window and peered. Through the blinds, a woman was standing on the porch, tall, thin, white. Jasmine didn't recognize her. The woman knocked again, more forcefully this time. Jasmine's instincts screamed at her to stay hidden, to pretend she wasn't home. But something else, maybe guilt, maybe exhaustion, pushed her forward. She cracked the door open just a sliver. "Can I help you?" Jasmine asked cautiously. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi," she said sweetly. "I'm Michelle, Marcus's attorney." Jasmine's stomach dropped to the floor. "I have some papers for you," Michelle continued, holding out a thick envelope. "Marcus is filing for full custody of the boy." Jasmine blinked, uncomprehending. "What? Full custody?" Michelle repeated, her voice like nails on glass. "He's petitioning the court, claims you're an unfit mother, due to unstable behavior, possible infidelity, and the situation surrounding the children's parentage." Jasmine's hands started to shake. "He can't do that. He can't take my son away from me." Michelle gave a small shrug. "He can try. And with the evidence he has, he just might win." Jasmine slammed the door in the woman's face without thinking. She staggered back into the living room, clutching the papers to her chest, gasping for air. Marcus wasn't just angry. He wasn't just hurt. He wanted revenge, and he was willing to tear their family apart to get it. For the first time since the twins were born, Jasmine felt something else burn through the grief and shame. Fury. How dare he? How dare he act like he was the only victim? Like she was some monster who didn't deserve her own children. Yes, she had made a mistake. Yes, she had been foolish, reckless, but she loved those babies with every piece of her broken heart. And she would not let Marcus rip them away from her, not without a fight. She grabbed her phone and called the only person she could think of, her best friend, Tamika. It rang twice before Tamika answered, her voice warm and familiar. "Girl, I've been worried about you," Tamika said immediately. "How are you holding up?" "Not good," Jasmine whispered. "I need your help." An hour later, Tamika showed up, arms loaded with groceries and a bag of takeout. She hugged Jasmine tightly, whispering soothing words before setting everything down and marching straight to the kitchen. "You need to eat," she said firmly. "You need strength if you're gonna fight." While Jasmine picked at some fries, Tamika flipped through the court papers, her eyes narrowing. "This is dirty," Tamika muttered. "He's painting you like you're some drugged-out cheating mess, like you're a danger to your own kids." Jasmine swallowed the lump in her throat. "I don't have a lawyer. I don't even know where to start." Tamika leaned across the table, gripping her hand. "You're not going to lose your babies, Jazz. I swear to you, we're going to find someone to help, and if Marcus thinks he's going to steamroll you, he's got another thing coming." For the first time in days, Jasmine felt a flicker of hope, but it was short-lived. That night, after Tamika left, Jasmine sat alone in the living room, rocking the twins gently. She stared down at their tiny, perfect faces, feeling a fierce surge of protectiveness, especially for her daughter. Because no matter what Marcus said, no matter what the court decided, Jasmine knew in her gut, if the truth came out publicly, if people found out the girl wasn't Marcus's biological child, her daughter would be treated like a stain on their lives, a constant reminder of betrayal. Would Marcus even love her the same, knowing she wasn't his? Would he resent her? Would he treat her like a mistake instead of a miracle? Jasmine shivered at the thought. She kissed both babies on their foreheads, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "I'll protect you," she whispered fiercely. "No matter what it costs me, I'll protect you both." She didn't know how yet. She didn't have a plan. But Jasmine knew one thing for certain. She had already lost her husband. She would not lose her children too, even if it meant digging up her darkest secrets, even if it meant facing down Marcus in a courtroom, even if it meant tracking down the stranger who had fathered her daughter and dragging the truth into the harsh, unforgiving light. The next morning, Jasmine stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her skin pale and drawn, her hair pulled into a messy knot on top of her head. This wasn't her. This wasn't the strong, confident woman Marcus had once fallen in love with. But somewhere, buried deep inside, that woman was still there. Jasmine could feel her, and now she needed to find her again. She splashed cold water on her face, took a deep breath and got to work. The first step was obvious. Find the man from that night. Find the biological father of her daughter. It sounded insane even inside her own head. She didn't know his name, didn't know where he lived. She barely remembered what he looked like, but she had to try. She dug out an old photo album from the back of her closet, flipping through pictures from her bachelorette party. Most of them were blurry, wild shots of her and her friends laughing, drinking, posing in ridiculous hats and feather boas. But as she turned the pages, her heart skipped a beat. There, a picture she barely remembered taking, she was sitting on a bar stool holding a neon green drink, and next to her was a man, tall, white, broad-shouldered, with messy blonde hair and a cocky smile. She stared at the photo so hard her vision blurred. Was that him? It had to be. Tamika's words echoed in her mind. You're not going to lose your babies, Jazz. Maybe Tamika could help her find him. Maybe between social media, bar records, anything. They could track him down. Because if Jasmine could prove that the father was willing to sign away his rights, or at least support her version of the story, she might have a fighting chance in court. She snapped a picture of the photo with her phone and texted it to Tamika with a simple message. I need your help finding him. Tamika responded almost instantly. On it. Send me the name of the bar and the night y'all were there. Jasmine racked her brain, trying to remember. It came back in pieces, the flashing lights, the cheap shots, the loud music. The Red Room, she texted back. Friday night before the wedding, Tamika sent back a thumbs-up emoji and a message that made Jasmine's heart race. I know a guy who can pull some strings. Sit tight. Jasmine spent the rest of the day pacing the house like a trapped animal, jumping every time her phone buzzed. The twins sensed her tension, fussing more than usual, and she did her best to soothe them with whispered lullabies and soft kisses. She was changing diapers when her phone finally rang. It was Tamika. Jasmine snatched it up so fast she almost dropped. Tamika, she gasped. Girl, you're not going to believe this, Tamika said, excitement crackling through the line. My guy pulled some security footage from that night, took some digging, but we got a hit. Jasmine's heart slammed against her ribs. Who is he? Name's Ryan Collins, Tamika said. He's a bartender. Well, he was a bartender. Quit a few months after your party, moved across town, owns a little auto shop now. An address popped up on Jasmine's screen a second later. Her hands shook as she stared at it. This was it, her chance to fix everything. Be careful, Tamika warned. You don't know this dude. You don't know how he's going to react. I will, Jasmine promised. Thank you, Tamika, I mean it. I love you. You got this, Tamika said fiercely. Go get your life back. Jasmine hung up, heart racing. She bundled the twins into their carriers, grabbing the diaper bag and her car. Keys. She wasn't going to leave them behind. Not now, not ever. Wherever she went, they went too. The drive across town was a blur. Jasmine barely registered the streets flashing by, her hands gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. When she pulled up outside the small, run-down auto shop, she sat there for a moment, staring at the faded sign swinging in the breeze. Collins Automotive. Her palms were sweaty. Her mouth was dry. What if he didn't remember her? What if he denied everything? What if he made things worse? But she didn't have a choice. She had to know, for her daughter, for her family, for herself. She lifted the car seat carriers, one, in each hand and marched toward the shop. The bell above the door jingled as she stepped inside. The smell of motor oil and rubber filled her nose. A man looked up from under the hood of a car. He wiped his hands on a rag and started toward her, a polite smile on his face, the same cocky grin she remembered from that blurry photo. Can I help you? He asked. Jasmine's throat closed up. For a second, she couldn't speak. Then she squared her shoulders, took a deep breath, and forced the words out. "You don't know me," she said, her voice shaking, "but I think we met once at the Red Room about a year ago." He frowned, studying her face. Then his eyes drifted to the 2 car seats at her feet, and his entire body went rigid. Something in his expression changed, recognition and fear. "And I need to talk to you," Jasmine said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about them." Ryan's face went pale, and Jasmine knew, without a doubt, that she had found the right man. For a long moment, Ryan just stared at her, at the twins, at the tiny innocent lives that were somehow connected to a night he probably thought he had forgotten. Jasmine felt her stomach twist tighter with every second that passed. Ryan dropped the rag onto the floor, his hands trembling slightly as he wiped them on his jeans instead. "Look," he said finally, his voice rough and defensive. "I don't know what you think happened, but I ain't the guy you're looking for." Jasmine's chest tightened. "Please," she said, voice cracking. "Just listen. I'm not here to ruin your life. I need the truth." Ryan backed up a few steps, glancing nervously around the empty shop like he was looking for an escape route. "I don't know you, lady. I don't even remember half the people I met back then." "You were a bartender," Jasmine said, heart pounding. "At the Red Room. My friends took me there for my bachelorette party. She swallowed hard, her face burning with shame. "You and we spent the night together." Ryan's mouth tightened. He looked at the babies again, focusing on the little girl. His face went pale. "Shit," he whispered. "So you do remember?" Jasmine said, her voice trembling. Ryan rubbed a hand through his messy blonde hair, pacing a little behind the counter. "It was one night," he muttered. "You were drunk." "Hell, I was drunk. We didn't even exchange last names." Jasmine nodded slowly. "I know, and I never meant for this to happen. I wasn't even sure until she was born." Ryan's eyes locked onto the baby girl's blue ones. The resemblance was there, no doubt about it. Same pale skin. Same blonde hair just starting to grow in soft wisps. Same piercing blue eyes. Jasmine took a shaky breath. "I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you for anything. She bit her lip to keep it from trembling. "My husband, my ex-husband, he's trying to take custody of our son. He's using this against me." "Against her?" Ryan's eyes flicked up to hers, confused. "Wait, ex-husband?" She nodded. "He found out she wasn't biologically his. He's furious. He's trying to tear us apart." Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else but here. "And what do you want from me?" Jasmine swallowed the knot in her throat. "I need you to sign away your parental rights, officially, legally. If you do that, no court can try to use you as a weapon against me. No one can claim she doesn't belong to me." Ryan stared at her like she was crazy. "You want me to just sign her away just like that?" "I'm not asking you to be her father," Jasmine said, her voice low and fierce. "You don't know her. You didn't plan for her. And neither did I. But she's mine. I'm all she has." Ryan looked away, his jaw clenching. "I'll have my lawyer draft the paperwork," Jasmine pressed on. "You won't owe anything. You won't have any responsibilities, just one signature, that's all I'm asking." The seconds dragged. Jasmine's heart slammed against her ribs so hard it hurt. Finally, Ryan let out a long, shuddering breath. "Give me a few days," he said. Jasmine sagged with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm not promising anything," he added quickly. I need to think." She nodded. "I understand." Without another word, Ryan turned and disappeared into the back of the shop, leaving Jasmine standing there alone with the twins. Her knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the carriers and staggered back to the car, tears stinging her eyes. It wasn't over. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, she had a chance. The drive home was a blur. By the time she pulled into the driveway, the sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of blood red and gold. She sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the house that used to be a home, Used to be full of laughter, of hope, of dreams. Now it was just walls, empty and echoing. Jasmine unbuckled the twins and carried them inside, her heart heavier than it had ever been. After she fed them and laid them down for the night, she curled up on the couch, wrapping herself in Marcus's old sweatshirt. The one that still smelled faintly like him. The ache in her chest was unbearable. She missed him, God, she missed him, but she hated him too. Hated the way he had turned on her. Hated the way he was willing to rip their son away from her to punish her, and she hated herself even more for making it all happen. Jasmine stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft breathing of her babies over the monitor. "You have to be strong," she whispered to herself. She had to fight, not just for custody, not just for survival, but for forgiveness, for herself, for the babies who didn't ask to be born into a mess, for the future she still desperately wanted to believe in. Somewhere deep inside her, that fire was still burning. It wasn't over yet, not even close. 3 days later, Jasmine got the call. She had been dreading. She had just gotten the twins down for a nap and was folding laundry in the living room when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She wiped her hands on her jeans and picked it up without even checking the caller ID. "Hello?" "Jasmine." "Harris?" a sharp female voice asked. "Yes," Jasmine said cautiously. "This is Officer Green with Child Protective Services. We've received a report concerning the welfare of your children. We need to conduct a home visit immediately." Jasmine's blood ran cold. "What?" she whispered. Who reported me?" "I'm not at liberty to say," the woman said crisply. "We'll be arriving at your residence within the hour." Jasmine stood there frozen, the phone slipping from her fingers onto the couch. Her mind raced. She knew exactly who had done this. Marcus. He wasn't just trying to take their son. He was trying to paint her as a danger, as a bad mother. He was trying to destroy her completely. Jasmine's hands shook as she scrambled around the house, picking up toys, wiping down counters, making sure everything looked perfect. She brushed her hair back into a neat bun, scrubbed her face with cold water to erase the signs of crying, and straightened her clothes. By the time the knock came at the door, she was ready. She forced a calm smile onto her face as she opened. Her 2 women stood there, one in a dark blazer holding a clipboard, the other wearing a plain polo shirt with a CPS badge clipped to it. They looked around the entryway with critical eyes. "May we come in?" the older one asked. "Of course," Jasmine said, stepping aside. They walked through the house slowly, inspecting every room, checking the fridge, the bathrooms, the nursery. Jasmine followed them silently, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear herself think. The younger woman crouched down by the twins' crib, cooing softly at the babies. "They look healthy," she said, almost to herself. "Miss Harris," the older woman said, flipping through her clipboard, "we received an anonymous report alleging neglect, unsafe living conditions, and emotional instability on your part." Jasmine's stomach twisted painfully. "That's a lie," she said, her voice shaking. "I take care of my babies. I love them more than anything." The woman gave a tight smile. "That's why we're here, just to verify." They asked her a series of rapid-fire questions about her finances, her mental health, her support system. Jasmine answered everything honestly, her hands clenched into fists at her sides to stop them from trembling. After what felt like hours, they finally finished. "We'll be in touch," the older woman said briskly, handing her a card. "If we need anything further, we'll call." Jasmine closed the door behind them and collapsed against it, sliding down to the floor. Tears poured down her, face hot and angry. Marcus had crossed a line she never thought he would cross. He didn't just want revenge, he wanted to annihilate her, and the worst part was, he might succeed. The CPS visit would be in their court files now. Even if it didn't go anywhere, even if it was proven unfounded, it would still be a stain. A mark against her. Jasmine curled into a ball on the floor, sobbing until she couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about her mistakes anymore. This was war, and Marcus was fighting dirty. Later that night, after she had calmed down enough to think straight, Jasmine called Tamika. As soon as her friend answered, Jasmine broke down all over again. "He's trying to take them from me, Tamika," she cried. "He sent CPS to my house. He's trying to make me look like some kind of monster." Tamika's voice was low and deadly calm. "Then you need to fight back just as dirty." "I don't know how," Jasmine whispered. "Find out his dirt," Tamika said. "You think Marcus is Mr. Perfect? Think again. Men like him always have something to hide. You just gotta dig." "But how?" "I'll help you," Tamika said. "I know a guy who's good with this kind of thing. Private investigators, background checks, whatever it takes." Jasmine wiped her eyes. "Tamika, I don't want to ruin him. I just want my kids." "And he wants to ruin you," Tamika snapped. "Wake up, Jazz. You're not dealing with the man you married. You're dealing with a man who thinks you destroyed his life. He's out for blood." Jasmine closed her eyes, feeling the full weight of it settle over her. She wasn't going to win this by playing nice. She wasn't going to win this by being the bigger person. If she wanted to protect her babies, she had to be ready to get her. Hands dirty. Really dirty. The next day, Tamika's guy, a wiry man with a shaved head and a fast, nervous way of talking, handed Jasmine a thin file. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were pictures, documents, records, evidence. Marcus had been seeing another woman for months. Even before Jasmine gave birth, sneaking around in hotels using burner phones, lying to his family and friends. Jasmine's mouth dropped open as she flipped through the pages. There it was, plain as day. Marcus wasn't just angry because he felt betrayed. He was guilty too. He just needed someone to blame, someone to punish. And Jasmine had been the perfect target. Not anymore. Jasmine set the file down slowly, her heart pounding. The anger burning inside her wasn't a wild, reckless thing anymore. It was cold, focused, sharp. She wasn't going to let him win. He wanted a war, he just got one. The courthouse smelled like fear and coffee. Jasmine sat on the hard wooden bench, her hands trembling slightly as she held her lawyer's arm for support. Across the room, Marcus sat stiffly with his own attorney, looking clean-cut, polished, and cold. He didn't look at her. Not once. The judge entered and everyone stood. Jasmine's knees almost buckled, but she forced herself upright. She had come too far to fall apart now. The hearing started with Marcus's lawyer speaking first. He painted Jasmine as unstable, as deceitful, as a liar who had shattered a marriage with her betrayal. He mentioned the CPS report. Ongoing investigations, he said, making it sound far more serious than it was. Jasmine sat there, swallowing her tears, gripping the table so hard her nails dug into the wood. Then it was her turn. Her lawyer stood, calm and collected. He admitted Jasmine's mistakes, didn't sugarcoat them, but then he laid out Marcus's sins for everyone to hear: the cheating, the hotel records, the burner phones. The courtroom shifted uncomfortably as pictures were passed up to the judge. Marcus's lawyer jumped up, trying to object, trying to minimize it, but it was too late. The truth was in the air now, heavy and poisonous. And then came the final blow. Jasmine's lawyer presented Ryan's affidavit. Ryan Collins had signed away all paternal rights, officially declaring he had no interest in custody, support, or involvement. More than that, he had provided a statement swearing that Jasmine had been unaware of the pregnancy's true parentage until after the birth, that there had been no deliberate deceit. The judge leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Silence blanketed the room. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "This case is a tragedy," she said. "It's clear that mistakes were made on both sides. But at the end of the day, custody must be determined based on the best interests of the children." Jasmine squeezed her eyes shut, praying. "Given the evidence," the judge continued, "I find no grounds to consider Miss Harris an unfit mother. The CPS report is unsubstantiated. The biological father has relinquished his rights, therefore—" Jasmine held her breath. "Sole custody of both children is awarded to Jasmine Harris. Visitation rights for Mr. Harris to be determined at a later review." The words didn't hit her all at once. They trickled in slowly, almost disbelievingly. She had won. She had won. Marcus stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor, his face twisted in fury. For a split second their eyes met, and Jasmine didn't see love or hurt or even sadness. She saw hatred. And then he turned and stormed out of the courtroom without another word. Outside, the sun was blinding. Jasmine stumbled down the courthouse steps, clutching Tamika's arm as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. "You did it, girl," Tamika whispered fiercely. "You fought. You survived." "I don't even know how," Jasmine sobbed. Tamika hugged her tightly. "Because you had to. For them." Jasmine wiped her eyes and looked around. The world felt different now, lighter but also heavier somehow. She had won, but not without losing pieces of herself along the way. She would carry the scars of this battle forever. Later that night, at home, she tucked the twins into their cribs, singing softly under her breath. Her son, Marcus's son, reached up and grabbed her finger with his tiny hand, squeezing tight. Her daughter, hers and Ryan's, cooed softly in her sleep. One tiny fist curled next to her rosy cheek. Jasmine sat between them, watching them breathe, feeling her heart swell and ache at the same time. They were her life now, her whole world, her second chance. She didn't know if she'd ever trust love again. She didn't know if she'd ever fully forgive herself. Some wounds ran too deep for simple apologies, but she knew one thing for certain. She would raise these babies with everything she had. She would fill their lives with love, even if hers had been shattered. She would be strong enough, for them, for herself, for the future she was still brave enough to believe in. Jasmine reached out and turned off the nursery light, plunging the room into soft, peaceful darkness. As she closed the door behind her, she whispered into the quiet house, "We're gonna be okay." And for the first time in a long, long time, she almost believed it.